There we go. Great, great. So welcome. We are Teach the Shoah. We're delighted to have you here. And we would love it if you would introduce yourself in the chat, maybe say where you're coming from or what brought you here, something like that. Tonight, we have our featured teller, Rowan Fripp, who you'll see in a few minutes and hear from. I'm Tanya Wasoker, and I also have Hannah Heller here to co-facilitate the program with me tonight. If you aren't familiar with Teach the Shoah, we are an organization dedicated to ensuring that the story of the Holocaust remains relevant and resonant. What do? We challenge ignorance and hate. So our stories are testimony based. We're trying to build personal connections among people of all generations and all backgrounds. And in addition to this program, this is a coffeehouse storytelling program, we have a whole variety of resources that you can find on our website. And I'll get a link for that up a little bit later tonight at teachtheshoah.org. So here are a couple of programs that are going to be coming up shortly. We have the next round of our popular 6-week program, Moving from Testimony to Story. And there are definitely people here who have taken this story course, as I have taken it myself and taught it. If you want to wait, I'll put the registration link into the chat in a few minutes. This particular course starts at the end of July in about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And then on August 7th, I hope you'll join us for a very special program called Sharing Their Stories from the Ghetto to the Forest. This is a story-infused talk about the Vilna Ghetto and the resistance in the forest. It's going to be 8 p.m. All of these programs are free, so I hope you'll consider joining. I'll put those in the chat in a few minutes. Okay, so take a look at this, and I'm going to take the share screen down and tell you what we're doing tonight. All right, great. So I see some people are writing in the chat. Thank you very much. So what are we going to do tonight? We're going to listen to a story of the Holocaust told by Rowan Fripp. We are going to appreciate the story. We will be noticing what happens inside us as we listen to this story. We will listen to Rowan tell a little bit about their process for choosing this story and developing this story. And you will have some time to ask questions at the end of that part too. Now, after that, we will be wrapping up that first hour, and you'll have an opportunity, if you wish, to stay on for another half an hour to just have a teeny tiny little taste of how we do our storytelling, just the very, very basics. You will not be asked to tell a story. You will not have to memorize anything. It's just a little bit of an experiential kind of a thing. And I think you'll really, really enjoy that. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Let's check that your microphones are off. That would be good. And I'm going to ask Deborah, maybe if you could put those two workshop links into the chat for me, that would actually be easier for me. Let me see who's here. I see a lot of faces I know. Diana, I see Michelle and Jessica here and Nina. And of course, Alan Pertman and Kathy, a lot of people that are familiar to me, and I know a lot of people that are familiar to Rowan. So the story and the discussion we're going to be having tonight is really part of this sacred tradition of storytelling. Every teller requires an audience. And together we embrace the story, together we listen to the story, together we notice. So I would like to ask you to begin with me by taking a moment to just prepare ourselves to receive the story, to notice our own feelings, to listen to one another this evening. You can close your eyes for just a moment if you want. I ask you to pay attention to your breathing. This is just a good preparation for Holocaust stories. Take a nice, deep, cleansing breath and exhale. Notice your posture. Are your feet on the floor? Are you solid in your chair? You might shift to get comfortable. Lift your head, straighten your spine, maybe stretch a little bit. You could roll your shoulders, continue with the deep breathing. You're trying to get as much oxygen into every cell in your body, right? And then release that CO2. This is very energizing. I ask you to take 1 or 2 more breaths, just in and out, just in and out. And I think we are ready to really begin the story part of our program. I have to remind you that everyone reacts differently to Holocaust stories. You're here to learn how to tell stories of the Holocaust or just to listen to the stories. And it's important to listen to many different types of stories. You're going to learn something from Rowan this evening, and I would invite you to please set aside anything that could distract you, like your phone. Listen with your whole self and imagine the story as we're listening. All right, let me pull up this slide here. Give me a moment. Okay. Hopefully I'm doing this correctly. Rowan Fripp. Rowan is an incoming graduate student at VCU at Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, in Virginia. Rowan's pursuing a Master of Science in Medical Laboratory Science with a concentration, if that wasn't enough, in microbiology. Rowan is one of the original storytellers for Teach the Shoah, and Rowan is going to be telling the story tonight of Frieda Belinafante. So, Frieda Belinafante. She was born in 1904 in Amsterdam to a family of accomplished musicians. Through her music, her identity, and her quiet resistance, Frieda navigated a world that demanded impossible choices. In 1947, Frieda emigrated to the United States, where she later became the founding artistic director and the conductor of the Orange County Philharmonic Orchestra. Frieda died in 1995. She was 90 years old. When our story begins this evening, Frieda is living in Amsterdam. This is the early 1940s during the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. So just give me one moment here so that I can spotlight Rowan, who is ready to go. All right. So, Rowan, it's all yours.
There's a knock at the front door. I wonder who that could be. I wasn't expecting anyone tonight. I don't think Yeti was either. I opened the door to see an old friend, a fellow musician, John Falcon. It's a delight to see him, but I wasn't expecting him. And this visit doesn't seem casual. His face seems determined. Frieda, marry me. I love you. Wait, what? He wants me to what? I live with Yeti and I love Yeti. Am I sure I heard him correctly? He must have seen the confusion on my face, because grabbing my hands tight, he repeats himself, saying, Frieda, I left my fiance for you. Marry me. I love you. Okay, so I didn't hear him wrong. Well, then, maybe if I am just blunt about this, he will drop it. John, I do not love you. I love Yeti. I love women. Even if I didn't love Yeti, I could not love you. You're a man. And I love women. I will forever be putting women on a pedestal the way that I will never put a man on one. I do not know why I do this. It is just in my nature. So I cannot love you the way that you love me. He goes quiet. Maybe, maybe he did understand me and is accepting rejection. Or so I thought. Because instead of giving up, he pulls out a gun. A gun! Is he really going to shoot me because I said no? But instead of pointing the gun at me, he points the gun at himself. Oh no. He says, gun clicked. Frieda, I don't care that you don't love me. Just live with me. And if you don't live with me, I'll shoot myself. Great. Now I have to make this decision. Do I say no, stay with Yeti, live with Yeti? But if I say no, he kills himself and I lose a friend. But if I say yes, a friend lives, but I might lose Yeti. The decision is obvious. All right, John, let's get married. Now I need to figure out how to tell Yeti. There is no way that I can see this going easy. But I don't hide things. I will just be blunt. Yeti, I'm moving with John. We're getting married. Instead of flashing out or really making a scene like I might have expected, she just smiles and says, I'll see you at breakfast. It's 1940. The Nazis have just invaded the Netherlands. Things are now a bit scary outside. I know I should be scared for myself. I know I should hide. After all, my father is Jewish, and I openly love women. But I'm not scared for myself. I'm scared for my friends. And but by seeing this new governmental regime, I can see that this government is wrong. That this government is wrong in how they're trying to identify people using these identity cards. So I will do what I do best. See something wrong and take it into my own hands and fix it. Like I've already done against the government before. When my friend Ellen Schwartz was refused her Dutch papers because she was originally Russian. And now she's now legally Dutch, thanks to my papers. So I will continue doing this, just against a different government. And instead of doing this by myself, I'll do it with the resistance. It's now 1943. If things were scary in 1940, they're even scarier now. As we know, the Nazis have had these identity cards for the past 3 years. It's their way of knowing who is Jewish and who is not. For those that are Jewish, have a giant J branded in their identity card. But it's my job with my steady hand to forge new ones so that these Jews can go on living another day. But we're running into a problem. And that problem lies in the civil registry office. For in that civil registry office, there are thousands of copies of the true identity cards. And if a Nazi soldier decides to randomly check someone's identity card against their supposed copy in the registry office and realizes that that one is false, then they know that false identity cards are out there. And then they know that who knows how many identity cards are out there. And then they know that we exist. And we can't let that happen. So the resistance has a problem. I might be at this meeting trying to figure out what to do about this problem, but I'm no leader of the resistance. I'm no front footman. I couldn't be even if I wanted to. After all, I'm just a woman. So all I do is create false cards with my steady hands. But I also create good ideas, like this one. If the copies in the civil registry office are the problem, then what if we get rid of the problem? What if we get rid of the copies? What if we bomb the civil registry office? Rudy is late, or about to be. If this was any normal day, being late would mean there's something wrong with traffic. He got out of bed late. Wouldn't really matter. But nothing has been normal lately. Nothing about this is normal. For we are part of the resistance, and in the resistance, being late is a death sentence. Being late means that something is wrong. Being late means that there's a rat and we need to go and we need to hide. I mean, he wasn't late last week when he brought the news that the bombing was a success. Thousands of the copies were destroyed. The whole forgery business worked. But this week, when all the news has died down from the bombing last week, when everything should be back to normal, this week, Rudy is late. He really is late now. And that's not good. For that means that something has happened to Rudy, whether he's been captured or killed or in hiding, I don't know, but all I know is that I can't be here anymore. All I know is that I need to hide. But where can I go? I can't go home. For if I go home, not only will I be in danger, but my friends, my family, everyone I care and love about will be in danger. And I can't let that happen. So what can I do? Where can I go if I can't be safe anymore? If I can't be Frieda anymore? What can Frieda do if Frieda can't be Frieda? That's an idea. What if Frieda, myself, is no longer myself? What if I'm no longer Frieda? A young man walks into a barber shop. He wears a three-piece suit, a hat, and glasses. He takes off his hat to reveal messy, self-cut hair. He desperately needs a haircut. A barber offers him a seat and asks him, "Would you like a shave or a cut, sir?" "Just a shave, please. Just a cut, please." And no one bats an eye. And Frieda becomes Hans.
Rowan, Rowan. Can I give you some appreciations?
Sure.
Sure, of course, of course. Can I just say that ending where you become so upset at the idea of putting yourself and your friends and your family in danger, and you raised your voice and you looked close at us, and we could just tell by the agitation in your voice what Frida must have been thinking at that moment. That was so effective. I love your expressions, your kindness to Yeti, and your confusion when John pulls out a gun and demands to marry you. You have this fabulous way of bringing us into the emotions of your characters in the story. I am just so impressed with this. And Hannah, I think, would you like to give some appreciations for Rowan? And then I think you could explain the appreciations, and we
Sure.
can allow some more. We're good on time, so we can have a
Okay.
few people to add. But what would you like to say?
Okay, so Rowan, I also have to say I loved your expressions. I liked the way you introduced it by the year. So you were taking us into each time frame, what was going on before the Nazis with explaining to the guy she ended up marrying, that she loves women. Just seeing this whole quandary. And in the beginning, I'm like, what does this have to do with the Holocaust yet? And then when the Nazis come and we really get into it, and the way that you went from one scene to another so seamlessly, it just was one continuous story. Um, and the way that she changed her identity to become Hans, it was very exciting. The way that she very cleverly went into that barber shop dressed as a man and had this whole plan that really worked for her. So thank you so much. So now we are going to have an opportunity to give appreciations to Rowan. When you give your appreciations, think of there's three different categories. We're going to talk about the content, the delivery, how Rowan delivered the story, and how did you feel hearing the story? So those are all things to keep in mind, the content, the delivery, and how you felt hearing the story. So you can raise your hand and give us appreciations, or you can put them in the chat, whatever your preference is.
And you can use that little hand in the react button if you want. But let's have Kathy first to see what she's got to say.
Thank you, thank you. Rowan, that was really, really well done. I I really love the way you sound just conversational and to the point where at one point I almost tried to answer you. I mean, I just I wanted to have a conversation with you. And because it felt so natural, it gave me this insight into the character of the person that you don't often see. This, not just what's going on out there, but what's going on in here, inside. And I thought it was really well done. So thank you. And I am actually going to leave because I just got a call that I have to take. But I'm so glad I got to tell you how excited I was to hear this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Diana, would you like to have some nice words for Rowan?
Yes.
See you.
Rowan, thank you so much. There were two remarkable parts of this. The way you're angled, that your face, instead of just coming straight on, the way you angled and looked at us, I felt like it was a very private conversation, that you were really looking at me, and it was very effective. I don't think I've ever seen that on Zoom before. So thank you. And the dialogue, the inner dialogue, I definitely felt like I was with your character. that the character was speaking to herself, but I was hearing her internal conversation, and it was very private and beautiful for me to be there with you. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Niana. Thank you. Michelle?
Thank you. Nice to meet you, Rowan. I'm Michelle from Pittsburgh. I've taken the course in speaking. I'd like to add to what everyone has said. Content. As someone said, I love the years, but the best way to tell you an appreciation is I am so sad you stopped at Hans because I really need to know more. Please don't stop there. So you've left me hanging, and it is an appreciation, just to be very clear. That was wonderful. I also, and I'm smiling because some of my teachers are here, even with your teachers, and you're related to some of my teachers. Your pausing is magnificent. That's how we knew a different year was coming, and you introduced it to us. And thirdly, building a little bit on what Niana said, you have a side eye that totally scares me because you used it. Yes, there it is again. And I haven't seen it. And you have been a master of it. And it didn't make me smile. It scared me, which is also a compliment. So thank you very much for sharing the story. And please come back to tell us what happened to Hans, if you would.
Oh, Michelle, thank you. Thank you. Oh, gosh. So, Jennifer.
Yes. Oh, Rowan, I'm so disappointed that I missed the beginning, but I have a lot to say about how much I appreciated from the moment I came in. I mean, I was completely, I was coming in from something and late and didn't have the link and all the things we do, and all that went away in 1 second because you were so embodied the character and you were talking to me. I mean, that's what it absolutely felt like. Like you were saying, listen to me. This is this story that is going on. And not even listen to me, just I had to listen to you. That's how it felt. It was so compelling. And I'm just going to talk about, because to everybody, I agree with everything everyone said, but I really want to talk about the scene where you talk about Frieda's realization of what she can do. This little snide, oh, because I'm only a woman, right? Love the way you did that. And then she thinks, wait, what if? And you let each moment, like each click of the wheels turn, there's another pause. And you're really letting Freda have that experience and letting us have that experience. So I really felt like, what if Freda is no longer Freda? It really felt like this was her world and her way of thinking. And then your mother, Dr. Deborah Fripp, wrote in the chat something about the switch from first to third. That was incredibly well done. And the same thing happened there. It was like I was walking in and watching this person. At first, I didn't understand. Why are we in this barbershop? Why is this happening? And then all of a sudden, it all came together at once. Really excellent. I've said this to you before. I really believe that the way of embodying a story, you are truly a role model. It is something I see very rare when someone really is fully that person, body, spirit, words. It's incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Does anybody else want to have a moment to say something? And by the way, if you're a little bit shy, I'm going to call on Ginny. If you're a little bit shy, please write in the chat. I will record I'll copy the chat and provide that to Rowan. So Rowan is going to be able to read all the nice, kind things that you want to write. So Ginny, hi.
Hi, Rowan, I agree with what everybody has said about your presentation, your being Frieda and then Hans. But I also want to compliment you on your choice of this story, because so many of the stories that teach the Shoah are from Eastern Europe. And of course, those are very important ones. But as you know, I had the opportunity in the 1960s to live for a year in Amsterdam, I was adopted by a family in which the father was the only person in his extended family to survive. And I was helped by a landlady who had hidden her friends. So to me, those years, um, I was, of course, very grateful to have lived in the United States rather than in Europe during the war. But I am old enough to have been born during the war, and to hear the story of somebody in the Netherlands who was part of the resistance, and who's survived and went on to a wonderful life in the United States, um, is really touching to me and makes me go back to all the people I knew in the 1960s who had been through that, been through the horror, the hiding, um, and as we know, I can also, as I think I've told you and Deborah, how I learned the story of Anne Frank piece by piece, never knowing the ending until it was translated. So I'd like to know more about why you chose this story from the Netherlands, but I'm very, very grateful that you did.
Ginny, thank you. Thank you. I think actually, Rowan, this might be a good time to switch
It's a
to,
good transition. It's a good of a transition as we're ever gonna get.
yeah, yeah. So we want to know how you chose Frida to talk about and why, and a little bit about how you turned this into a story. I can tell everybody, just in case you don't know, that I looked at the transcript testimony that Rowan used, and it's
It's a
many,
long
many, many,
transcript.
many, 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 many pages long interview. And so it's,
Like
we
2 hours,
all
2 or 3 hours.
choose something to tell a story. So
Yeah.
tell us, Rowan, about your choices.
So I chose a story last June because last June, Mom decided to do a Mom, Deborah Fripp, leader of Teachers Show Up, that one, um, decided to do a Pride event thingy, and I am her openly LGBTQ child, and so she's like, Rowan, you should tell a story, so I'm like, okay, what options do you have? Because I'm not very good at finding stories. That's Mom's job. That's Lynn's job. It's not my job. My job is just to tell them. And so she gave me a whole list, different packets of different story options, and I was flipping through them, not very interested in any of them, and that's when I get to Frieda. And I will admit, at first, I'm like, probably not. But that's when I get to this one session where she's like, yeah, I hid as a dude for 3 months, and my mom didn't even recognize me. And I'm like, wait, what? What? Because as someone who's non-binary, that idea of Frieda hiding as a dude, I'm like, yes, please, and absolutely, let me tell the story. And what's even better, though, is when I keep looking through this, I find that beautiful quote from Frieda that I paraphrased at the beginning, saying that I love women. I will put a woman on a pedestal the way that I will never put a man on one. I cannot love you the way that you love me. That is essentially a direct quote from Frieda, and that is a amount of lesbianism that any lesbian can attain to be. And and so it's very much she's just so openly gay that I'm just like, I love this. And it becomes even better when I dive deeper and deeper into who Frieda is and who she knew. And it's just like, oh, this becomes better and better. And I don't remember which one of you guys that was like, where did that first scene come from? So it's a mixture of two things. One, it was one of those scenes that as I was glancing over testimony, because I did not read the whole thing, that it's way too many words. I glance over it at most. I do not read over this stuff. It's too much. If they ever tell when you're doing a testimony, if they ever tell you to read the whole thing, ignore them. Don't. The most important things are not the entire thing, because most of that thing you're seeing is just fluff. What are important things is that when you glance over, what's the thing that catches your eye? So, like, for example, Hans caught my eye. I love the woman. I put a woman on a pedestal. The way when I put a man on one caught my eye. If I didn't marry him, he'll kill himself, caught my eye. So I'm like, oh, I gotta add that scene in. It's very much of you choose the scenes that are the most interesting to you, and then you figure out, how do I make them flow afterwards? You never try to figure out how to make them flow beforehand. It's always after the fact. And that how you make them flow after the fact is often something that Jennifer calls your MIT, your most important thing. Never try to have things be put into the MIT box. Create the MIT box around your story. So, for example, my MIT box I created around the story is the idea of Frieda doing everything to help her friends. She is less important, that her own safety is less important than her friends. You see that in that first scene when she says, oh, the decision is obvious. I'll marry John, even though she's very much a lesbian. Second scene is when she's talking to Henrietta, and she's like, I don't want to lose this friend, but I know I need to tell her. So I'm just going to tell her. Third scene, I don't care about myself. I'm more worried about my friends, like Ellen Schwartz, who I created false documents for. Real person from her testimony. The resistance, again, it's doing things for the friends, for the people in the resistance, for those Jews she's helping, even if they're strangers. Going into hiding, becoming Hans is what do I do to keep not only myself safe, but my friends and family safe. That's why she couldn't go back home. It was always about how to keep her friends, how to keep her family safe. And and once you find that MIT, it makes things go a lot more smoothly. But it's also very much find what's interesting. Because, you will never finish a story if you don't find it interesting. If you don't find it interesting, you'll push it onto the back burner and clean your apartment instead of working on the story. If you find it interesting, you can see that story and work on it for hours on end. Oh, you have to find the thing that is interesting to you, because if it's interesting to you, then you can make it interesting to your audience. When an audience truly likes something is when the storyteller enjoys telling that story. Like, I love telling this story, so that makes my audience like listening to the story as well.
Rowan, can I put up that picture?
Yes, please. Please. Yes.
People, wait, I don't think I did it correctly. Hold on.
That's okay.
Yes. It should be here. There we go. I think this will be something you can subscribe, and then I'm going to let people ask you some questions for a few.
Real quick, both of those pictures are of Frieda. The one on the right, I think that's the right. The dude, that's Hans. You would not expect that to be a woman. She made a very attractive male. Questions, comments, concerns, frustrations.
Let me pull this down.
Words.
That was a wonderful description of.
Thank you. I just started talking. I'm good at that.
You're good at that. You really are. And you know what? Let me also just show people, just in case you're wondering about the mechanics of this. When we're doing these stories for Teach the Show, we are also recording and making sure that we have some sources. So this is what Rowan gave me, the link to the transcript, also the YouTube video she did of telling the story earlier, and then where she got her photos.
Oh, and also when you're doing a story like this, you'll often get a main transcript that you'll get from Mom or from Tanya, Lynn, sorry, wrong person, or from whoever you're doing, especially if it's someone that you don't know. Google them. I will admit that in her testimony, she does not talk about her work in resistance very much, if at all. I found a lot about her resistance work by Googling her name.
Yes.
So don't be afraid to Google it. Google is your friend. It exists for a reason.
Multiple sources. You got it. So who wants to ask Rowan some questions? We do have, I don't know, we have a good eight or so minutes. So ask some questions about,
talking if needed.
yeah. Is there anybody who hasn't spoken yet who would like to speak? I only see a few cameras on and I'm about to call on Diana, but somebody else might want to speak. All right, Diana, your question goes first.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I learned so much from what you just said. And I want to go back to that most important thing. How did you know, even though you had the central point, did you have trouble keeping some scenes out? I want to know how you kept it so sharp and sharp focus. Part of it was that you didn't have a lot of scenes. It was concentrated. And I want
Right.
to know how you did that, if that was hard to do.
I that's definitely an interesting question because you can have a range of things of where you have too many scenes, you don't have enough scenes. I mean, I will admit that I did get to a point where I didn't have enough scenes. When Tanya and I were first looking at this, looking at my previous my previous version of it last year, that was 8 minutes. We wanted this to be 12 or so. So we had to figure out, how can I stretch this out? How can I add another scene? And so I added that scene about that where we learned about Ellen Schwartz. That was her name. However, a lot of the idea of knowing what scenes you're doing is a mixture of knowing what's most important about this, is knowing what's important about this character, about this person you're telling about. What are things that she were about? What, when I was looking at this, I'm like, yes, it's important to know what I find interesting, but it's also important to know, what does she find interesting? What does she find important? What is part of her core values? From what I saw, her core values was being very, very gay. Hence why that I have that another excuse to have that very beautiful, very funny first scene. But then it was also the idea of going into hiding. Of when I first Googled Frieda, one of the first things I found when I Googled Frieda is that picture of Frieda as Hans, and a very attractive Hans, if I might say so myself.
Yeah.
And I need to make sure I have that point in there. So then I'm like, okay, great. I have my outside. What's the meat? How do I transition from one scene to the other? How do I go in the middle? And with that middle one was definitely figuring out the harder part, because part of that was she didn't talk a lot about that middle in her testimony at all. It was very much I had to go a little digging into it, because for some reason Frieda's actually quite wildly popular as being a gay icon from the 1940s, which I very much appreciate, because I love for a lot of websites to look at. But it was very much a understanding what's not only important to her, what's important to me, but also what's important to the time period. So that's why, although the resistance wasn't a big thing for her, as it not being very clear in her, she didn't talk about it a lot, if at all, in her testimony, but it was a very big deal for the time period. So because it was such a big deal for the time period, I wanted to make sure, I felt like I should add that in. And it shows that she's doing more than just herself going into hiding. I mean, sure, that's some people's testimonies is just about them going into hiding, which I'm like, those are great testimonies as well. Those are important, but that's not who Frieda is. Who Frieda is joining the resistance, and learning that she joined the resistance, that she helped with that bombing, shows something about Frieda. It shows her oomph, her chutzpah, I guess. I don't know. It shows that she is wanting to although she's underground, she's still wanting to put herself out there. She's still wanting to fight the fight.
Rowan, Tammy's asking you, did Frieda stay in hiding, or did Hans remain her alternate personality? Did they go back and forth?
Yeah, so that's actually quite interesting. So I will admit that I stopped this testimony at Frieda becomes Hans, because that's just a beautiful way to end it. It's such a beautiful cliffhanger, and And she's like, I've never had a better ending than that. So just end it there. However, as Hans, she does successfully stay in hiding in Amsterdam, amusingly enough, as Hans for about 3 months, where she is in Amsterdam as Hans, walking around, living her life as Hans, distributing, and actually as Hans, distributing false identity cards as Hans. And she says in her testimony that she walked by as Hans by her mother, and her mother didn't recognize her. But that's when the SS soldiers, I don't exactly know how, but they started to question Hans. So at that point, she's like, okay, I need to flee, and she essentially gave up being Hans-ish. I mean, she still used it, but she then fled off into the mountains of Switzerland. She then fled off, mixture of train and also by foot, going up to Switzerland, and along the way, still distributing like false identity cards. I mean, false identity cards was a big thing for Frieda, but she eventually got to Switzerland, was in Switzerland for the rest of the war-ish, and then she immigrated to the U.S. as Frieda. And when she did the Orange County Philharmonic and all the musical stuff in the U.S., she was Frieda. So she does this become Frieda again after being Hans, but being Hans was mostly a way of hiding herself when she staying in Amsterdam. But all around, she's a badass. We all should aim to be someone like Frieda, especially as lesbians.
That is correct. Jennifer has a question.
First of all, I just have to give another appreciation. I mean, Rowan, when you're talking about your excitement about the story, it just, you're so right that it makes us so excited. And I love the comment about when you're excited, they're excited. Like we always say, when you're ready for the story, the audience is ready. But I like your comment that if we believe it, if we're into it, they're into it. And just hearing the background and how excited you get, and talking about, that this woman was so comfortable in her sexuality and her gender identity and these different.
She was open,
right? And
I mean, even during Nazi, even during the Nazi resistance, she didn't go into hiding from being a lesbian. She was openly a lesbian, even with Nazis in occupation.
Yes, and I think we as an audience or as a community should be more excited. We should be as excited as you are, because that wasn't a given. It's not a given today, but it certainly wasn't a given then that everybody would feel that. So to remember like the different contexts of that is great. I wanted to ask you a question a little bit about that. In her writings or testimony or whatever your research turned up, did she ever talk about what it felt like to be Frieda when she made that choice? What it felt like to be Hans when she made that choice, and specifically during war? Like, what I would love to hear more about, like how she explained that, if she did.
So, it wasn't as if her. I mean, something that's kind of funny about this whole testimony, with this whole big, long, multi-dozen pages of testimony, of multi-hour length testimony from Yishom, is that a lot of it was about them asking if she had sex with this person versus this person. A lot of it was about her sex life, which isn't very helpful at all. So I was looking through that, I'm like, that's about sex, that's not helpful, that's about sex, that's not helpful, that's not helpful, that's not helpful, that's not helpful. And it was a interesting read. Tanya can attest to that. But as the whole idea of transitioning from Frieda into Hans was never a decision she really had to make. This was what I need to do. It was a very much a this is the logical next step. It was never this is a hard decision. Yes, we've come a long way from talking about sex to talking about terror and death and all the important stuff. But Frieda very much was never someone to hesitate about anything. She was always, I mean, sure, she'll be like, did I hear that correctly? But once she heard it correct, like in that first scene, but once she heard something correctly, she doesn't hesitate. She is a very blunt person. And she is a very confident in herself, whether that be her decision to join the resistance or that decision to become Hans. She is very confident and very self-assured that she knows what she is doing.
Can I ask you one more question, a follow-up question?
Yeah.
And this is my last question. With your choice, so that's about her. So that question was about her, but now I'm talking about you.
Yeah.
Your choice as an artist, because as storytellers, we are artists, right? As an
Yeah,
artist
absolutely.
to make the choice of, okay, this is how I'm going to hold myself, right? As Frieda, this is how I'm going to present, especially that last scene. How did you, I know that you work with Tanya and I know you are incredibly creative on your own. How did you come up with maybe pick one scene and how you chose to tell it the way you did?
Oh, that's interesting. So I do admit that this, if you go look back at my version of this from last year, it's going to be very different than this year's, mostly because last year I had done everything in third person. Well, this year I had that transition from first person to third person. I mean, I did it completely in third person last year because that last scene was so beautiful. And I'm like, I need to have the scene. I don't care what else changes. I need to have that scene in there. And so because of that, everything was in third person. But working with Tanya, we're like, the third person is okay. I mean, all my other stories, my other two, are in first person. Mostly because in first person you can have that character depth. You don't have to have any extra flowery words to say, John said this, Frieda said that, John's face looked like this, John did this, John did that, etc., etc., etc. When you're in first person, you can let your body take the action. You can let your face take the action. You can let your body position. I mean, a lot of people talked about how I'm angling myself differently, and I'm over here like, I didn't do that on purpose. I have a swivel chair, so I took advantage of my swivel chair. Because how I talk and how I portray characters is I'm a very body talker. So I talk a lot with my face, with my hands, with my shoulders, with my I guess also my hips. And it's very much you use what's comfortable with you. So for example, one of my favorite scenes that I do, other than that last scene, when I had it all in third person, the only scene I really liked was that last scene. All the other ones felt eh. But when I was able to go in first person, then I'm like, oh, this works a whole lot better. And you will notice a difference when you find that point of view that works just right. That point of view that I'm like, oh, I like that. And for me, it's always been first person. And with that, the scene that worked that I'm like, I want to play with that one a little more, was very much that scene of where Rudy's late. Because in that scene, you have the existential crisis. You have if this was normal, this would be fine. But it's not normal. But nothing right now is normal. We're part of the resistance. This isn't good. And it's the slowly realization of, oh God, oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Because although she doesn't hesitate on anything, she still has emotions. She still is going to feel that existential crisis and that dread of realization that she's stuck. And it's very much when you're in that first person character, sure, there's a little bit of your own interpretation because you don't know how their emotions were, but it's still showing those emotions and showing, thank you. Internal monologue is very important when you're in first person. And it's one of the appeals of first person as compared to third is that internal monologue. But then that makes it a little more hard about doing internal monologue versus outside. So that's when you have the whole body movement come into play. How close and how far away from the camera you are. But it's also figuring out how the emotion comes in and how the emotion shows in your face, in your closeness, in your hands, in your breath, in your pauses, in your how you do everything will end up becoming part of the emotion. When you're a storyteller, especially when you're a storyteller that allows to have a video like Zoom, as compared to being over a podcast, you it is no longer just about your voice. It is no longer just about the words. It is about so much more, and there's so much more facets into the storytelling that comes into this. It is never about just the words or just the voice. Because the most important thing I've realized when doing these storytellings is a mixture of two things. One, sure, you're gonna have an outline, but do not, and I repeat, do not have a script. You will not sound right as a script. So because of that, you can have an outline. I mean, I have so many outlines, but that is just telling you the vibe of things. It's your interpretation in the moment. Your best character will come forward in the moment, and it will change moment versus moment based on how you have progressed as a storyteller, or just how you're feeling that day. So between the different versions of different stories I have, you will see very, very different versions of the story, because although the basics are all the same, but the vibe and the emotions I put in are slightly different. The exact words are slightly different. It's all in the moment. And you always have to be in the moment when you're doing these stories.
Rowan,
If that makes sense.
it makes a lot of sense. And
Yay! Sorry for the rambling.
No, you're not rambling. In fact, it seems like you just
Yay.
gave a 6-week storytelling course in miniature. You pretty much gave all the main points that
Hey, Bob, if you ever need another instructor for one of these courses, I'm here.
well, clearly you don't need much training, but I can see that it is almost 9 o'clock. So
Sorry.
I have to say thank you. Thank you so much, Rowan, for sharing the story, for sharing your process, for sharing Frieda with us. We are going to set aside Frieda's story for the evening. If that means you're visually putting the story on the table or over there on the counter, just let Frieda relax within you for a few minutes. I'm going to put up the last slide of the first part of our program just so that we can see. Let's move that slide to that. Wait a minute. Just want to be sure we are I want to be respectful of your time. So, this part of the coffee house is ending. This is the first piece, and I really hope you'll stay on for another half hour just to try a little bit of the kinds of things that Rowan was just talking about. I will not be asking you to tell a story. You are not expected to bring a story or tell a story or publicly do anything tonight. It's just a fun little exercise. What you see here is the Teach the Shoah team. And what you don't see here are all the names of the more than 100 tellers who are people just like you. People who wanted to become part of this project, making sure that the voices of those who experienced the Holocaust will continue to resonate for the future. I really hope that you'll consider being part of this group. Here is some contact information, the same as I shared with you earlier in the evening. And I'll put this, I guess I can try doing that. We have a donation link that is also a good thing to put in the chat, but I think it is so complicated to do this while I'm sharing that I'm going to stop sharing so that I don't have to be, oh, look at this. Deborah, links for the upcoming programs. Well, here is the donate button as well. And what I'm really hoping is that some of you are going to stay on for another 20 minutes or so and just have a little fun with us. It's definitely casual. There is no pressure. And if you have to go because you have a busy life or you just are tired, we totally understand. And I hope that you will keep in touch with Teach the Shoah and certainly keep an eye out for Rowan Fripp, our rising star. I'm sure she will be back to tell another story soon. All right, if you're still here in about 3 minutes, I'm going to be excited because Hannah's going to make a breakout room in about 5 minutes so that you can talk with us and have a little bit of fun with us. Thank you, everybody, for being here. All right. I'm gonna
Okay, I had it set. I did some people left, so I
Right.
just have to rearrange.
Yeah.
Give me another minute, to
Oh,
rearrange.
yeah,
Tanya,
no,
but-
we're
I'll
not-
stay.
we don't have time
Tanya,
for the breakouts,
Tanya,
Hannah. You're just-
I'll stay, but Mom needs to go. So
Mom,
I'll stay.
Deborah,
Hmm?
Deborah, it's good to see you. Have a lovely, beautiful day, considering that it's 9 o'clock in the morning for you.
Yes, yes. Rowan, amazing job as we knew it would be. Okay.
I'm glad your brother was here. That's pretty cool. Pretty cool. I'm also going to stop the recording here because